Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is December 10th. On this day in 1945, police officers in Chicago, Illinois walked into a hotel apartment on the city's north side and encountered a scene so gruesome and disturbing that it would haunt the city for decades to come. Inside the Pine Grove Hotel, a woman in her early 30s named Frances Brown had been brutally murdered. She'd been shot and stabbed, with the knife still lodged in her neck. But it was the killer's eerie message scrawled on a wall in red lipstick that made the crime notorious. Today, we're talking about the murder of Frances Brown. Let's get started. Frances Brown was more than just a victim in a sensationalized crime. She had lived a life shaped by service and independence. A former member of the Waves, the U.S. Navy's wartime women's auxiliary, she had returned to civilian life and was living on her own in a bustling part of Chicago. By most accounts, she was respected, hardworking, and lived quietly in her apartment at the Pine Grove Hotel. Some records list her age in 1945 as 32 and others as 33, but what they agree on is that she was a woman who was trying to move forward in a world that was still recovering from World War II. The neighborhood where she lived was lively and urban. It was a place where anonymity was easy and where comings and goings often went unnoticed. That setting, as it turned out, may have worked in the killer's favor. Unfortunately, details are scarce in the timeline of Frances Brown, but we do know that she was discovered in her apartment on the morning of December 10th. The crime scene was disturbing, to say the least. Frances had been shot in the head. She had also been stabbed with a kitchen knife, the kind used for cutting bread, which had been plunged into her neck with great force. Her body was found in the bathroom area of her apartment. And there were signs that the killer tried to clean the scene, perhaps trying to remove evidence. Frances had been partially stripped, and police found a bloody fingerprint on a nearby door jamb. That fingerprint wasn't even found initially, but later it would become a central piece of evidence in this case. And then there was the message. Written on the wall in lipstick, which police believed to have been Frances's own lipstick, was a message that read, quote, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself," end quote. It was terrifying. The handwriting itself was a mixture of uppercase and lowercase letters that only made it look more insane. This certainly was not your average crime scene. The timing of the murder was also important. World War II had ended just a few months earlier. Chicago, like the rest of the country, was trying to return to normal. Soldiers were coming home and families were rebuilding. And yet, just as peace was settling in, something dark was unfolding. Because Frances Brown's murder wasn't the only one. Earlier that year, Josephine Ross had been killed under similarly violent circumstances. And just weeks after Frances's death, a third victim, 6-year-old Suzanne Degnan, would be kidnapped and murdered. Together, these three crimes shattered any sense of post-war calm and fueled fears that there was a serial predator on the loose in their city. The media, of course, fed into the frenzy. Headlines dubbed the suspect the lipstick killer, based on the message left at her apartment. And the public couldn't get enough. In June of 1946, about 6 months after Frances's death, a teenager named William Heirens was arrested for burglary. He was just 17 years old and was a student at the University of Chicago. Under intense police questioning and after weeks in custody, Heirens confessed to the murders of Ross, Brown, and Degnan. He pleaded guilty later that year and was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms in prison. But as time went on, there were questions. Heirens claimed that his confession was coerced, And legal advocates and journalists have raised concerns about the interrogation tactics that were used on a teenager with no legal counsel present. There were also debates about the forensic evidence. Remember that bloody fingerprint I mentioned earlier? People started to question whether it actually matched Heirens' fingerprints at all. The testimony of handwriting experts was also questioned. Could they actually definitively link Heirens to the lipstick message? Even that note itself has been questioned. Was it truly left by the killer? Did Heirens write it at all? Or was the message staged? Despite these lingering questions, Heirens served more than 60 years in prison for the 3 murders. He died behind bars in 2012. With all the attention on the killer and his confession, it's easy to forget the women and the little girl at the center of this story. Frances Brown was more than a headline. She had served her country. She had built a life for herself. And she was taken in an act of horrific violence. Whether or not Heirens was truly responsible, the debates about his case have become a permanent part of the conversation around wrongful convictions and coerced confessions. And in the midst of these debates, the names of the victims often get lost. Josephine Ross, Frances Brown, Suzanne Degnan. 80 years have passed since Frances Brown died in her Chicago apartment. Her case tells 2 stories, one of a brutal crime that devastated a woman's life, and another of a justice system that's still grappling with the balance between speed and truth. We remember the lipstick message, yes, but more importantly, we remember Frances, a woman who served her country and whose life was stolen too soon. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Frances' story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe, and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!